Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. I am so excited to be here another Wednesday with you all. I am going to go ahead and get started here. Trying to figure out um, why my videos are not working. Good morning. If not, feel free to watch the playback. Good morning if you're on my Facebook or my YouTube channel. Today, I am starting a new series that is called Brand Like Jesus. This one was really placed on my heart because I was trying to figure out what to do next in my business. I started going into a season of prayer, trying to figure out what God is calling me to do next. And from there, this series emerged. I call them divine downloads. This was definitely a divine download to um, to be able to share this message with everyone. And when I think about um, what this series could look like, what it would be like, it's like, okay, I need a new time. I want to be able to present information first thing in the morning. So good morning. If you are here with me at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so excited to see you here. If this time does not work, definitely send me a DM and I'll switch it up. But I wanted to be able to help people jumpstart their day with some really useful information. Today, I want to talk about Jesus's origin story because so often we as entrepreneurs and business leaders, we overlook our origin story. We act like it doesn't matter, or we forget, or we omit things when everything has led to the moment that we are in today. Y'all will also notice that today I don't have a guest with me. I will be reintroducing some new guests who are all Christian female founders, and they're going to talk about their work, how they approach their business and brand with their biblically based businesses as well. But for today, I really wanted to dive in and introduce this new series. I don't know how long, how many weeks it's going to be. I'm really trying to step into purpose, really have God lead the way. I tell people all the time, I'm the president of my company, but God is the CEO. And so having even that shift in business is countercultural. So often we listen to business gurus and they say, profit first, passion later. I want to go ahead and say, as a Christian business leader, it's purpose first, because I know the profits will come, because I know I'm already amply supplied for every single need my business is going to have, that's going to help me do all of the work that I feel called and led to do. But I digress. Going to jump in to Jesus's origin story, because so often we remember Jesus, we're dying on the cross, this major teaching ministry, but that was really 3 years of his life. No one really wants to go back and think about the journey that got Jesus to the place where he now has this brand that we remember. And so I went back to the scripture inside the Gospels and started leaning into the Bible. I will warn y'all, I am not I repeat, not a pastor. I believe in studying the Bible. I believe that the Bible has a lot to tell us about entrepreneurship, about how to manage our brands, about how to manage ourselves while we are interacting as business leaders. And so if this is you, please hold me accountable to understanding what the scripture says. I never want to add or take from what the word of God says about any of the things. So I'm going to jump in. I have my notes with me because, again, this is full disclaimer, an uncomfortable conversation for me as well, to put my religion on display in a way that feels not only honoring of me, but then honoring of the journey that I'm in. And speaking of origin stories, y'all, this might be a ramble moment. God gave me this vision 2 years ago when I started my vision and my business, and I did not listen. I took an entire year and a half, a detour, only to be brought right back to this place. But I think the detour had to happen because I didn't understand the fullness of the vision when I first started the business. And so I have a journal writing. For those of you all who ever work with me, you already know I say, please journal every day. I actually have a journal writing of this moment where I felt led to teach and talk about the gospel in a meaningful way. I just didn't know what that looked like. So I wrote the journal 2 years ago, put it aside, didn't know what I was supposed to do with it, picked it back up a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was for this moment. So don't discount your origin story. With that, I'm going to jump in. So again, pulling out my notes because hold me accountable here. I want to talk about some challenges and practical solutions for how to deal with your origin story, especially if it's uncomfortable, especially if the business that you are in has nothing to do with everything you've ever done before as an expert. And it mirrors Jesus's journey, right? Like he came out the womb with this very big vision that was presented to his mother by God. And then he went through the silent season, almost 30 years of where did Jesus go? So y'all, if you're in your silent season, if you feel like you're starting to step out of your silent season and into purpose, know that that journey is normal and it's also necessary. And so often we overlook that part of the journey and we're saying, God, hurry up and God, when? Well, if we look at Jesus's origin story, it took him 30 years to get prepared. Now, do we know exactly what was happening during that time? No. Jesus could have been working all sorts of miracles, right? There's some biblical scholars that said Jesus was just a carpenter. There are some that also argue that he may have already been miracle working throughout that time, but nobody knew about him. And I don't know about you, but I remember feeling like the silent miracle worker in corporate. I felt like the unseen, unheard voice thinking, why is no one listening to me? Why is no one paying attention to me? Why doesn't anyone know about me? And that went on for about 12 years of my corporate journey of feeling like I was fighting to be heard, to be seen, to be, in the presence, in the right rooms, to have people affirming and talking about me in ways that I wanted to be talked about, to figure out what my known for was. And so if that is you, I want to encourage you that your invisible season, your hidden season is priming you for such a time when all of those things will be revealed to you. So don't think that part of your journey doesn't matter or that you should count it for naught, because if all things are working for good, even that thing is working for good as well. I remember when I transitioned out of corporate and I was at probably the lowest of the lowest points, right? I was unwell. I was unhealthy. If you read any of my social media posts, right? Like no one should be talking about having a stroke at 39 or 40. And yet that's where I was. And from that one post, there were so many other people who said, Sybil, that was me too. That was my experience. And so it's like, well, what can you learn from this? What was that silent season supposed to teach you? It was priming you to build the skills that you would need as a business leader. And so from that, I'm able to connect to all of my clients at a different level than I previously thought, because I went through that journey, through that season of being tried and tested. So don't count it off or not, that origin story, if that's where you're going through right now, or if you're trying to figure out like, okay, God, why are the bills piling up? Why are these things happening? Just take hope and know that it's because it's a part of your greater purpose. And so I want to share 3 key points, and then I'm going to jump off. This one's going to be shorter because, again, I don't have anybody to talk to but me. So key point number 1, Jesus's identity was shaped at and before his birth, right? Before his public ministry, his purpose was already given. It was given to his mother while he was still in the womb, that she was going to be carrying him, right? And it was clear, that vision, and she didn't understand it either. Y'all, I did not understand the vision 2 years ago. I was like, okay, God, what you mean you want me to go preach and teach? I'm not a preacher. Have I taught? Yes. What does this mean? And so often we want the entire vision to be revealed to us. But what I have learned over this last couple of years journey is that's what faith is. It's about stepping out on that vision, even if you don't understand it. It's about putting one step and one step and one step and taking action based off of what you know to be true about you. And so if that is you today, I want to encourage you to say like, okay, if I was given this vision and this is my starting point, what does it look like for me to take one intentional step day after day? The next thing that we know about Jesus's origin story is around age 12, he did start working his first miracle. And people were like, oh my gosh, this kid is wise beyond his years. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I was called wise beyond my years, but not, in the affirming way that Jesus got, right? I was told that I was too mouthy, that I always had something to say, that children should be, seen and not heard. And so for a long time, I didn't know what my voice was supposed to sound like because it was silenced by the adults in the room who said, you have no business in this conversation, or why do you know these things? This dialogue is for adults only. And so often what I found with the women that I partner with is we still relive those childhood trauma moments that says, no, wait, I'm not supposed to speak, or no, wait, I'm supposed to ask for permission. And they come to me and they say, well, Sybil, I need to be on Oprah's sofa so I can share my story. And I'm like, you don't need Oprah's sofa. Just start sharing your story and it'll connect to the right people. Or Sybil, will you help me get a TEDx? Well, I mean, I could help you get a TEDx, but like, what's the end game behind getting that TEDx? There has to be something deeper that makes you think that these are going to be the silver bullet solutions to you finding your voice and stepping into that calling and purpose. So if that is you, again, really think, what are those past hurts and traumas that you might be reliving that might have stalled your progress in figuring out your voice? What are those workplace history issues that you've had with sharing your story or feeling confident enough to say that this is who I am and this is what I have been called to do? And y'all, like I said, I love a good journal. And good morning, good morning, good morning as y'all are logging in. Really dig deep and start writing through those things. And it might help you discover that voice that you thought you were missing, or that voice that you thought did not exist. The other thing is this: Jesus was able to share his message without social media, right? His content came from his core. And I see so many business owners struggle because they're afraid to share their origin story. They think they're oversharing. They think they're going to re-trigger somebody or traumatize someone. And so I want to be helpful today and say, I too was afraid of sharing my origin story. So much so that I tried to change my origin story. And if you followed my journey, I think I wrote a post a couple of months ago, and I tried to rebrand myself. And y'all, I did not even mean to wear green today. I was just like, I feel like a pop of color. But I said, okay, I've left corporate. I'm finding my new voice. Everyone should call me Sage because I'm wise. Well, God was not going to bless the Sage business. He was trying to bless Sybil. And for the first 9 or 10 months of my business, it struggled because I was trying to sell something that I was not. I was trying to convince myself and the world that I was the Sage persona that just kind of showed up overnight, and it did not work, and it fell flat, and it didn't feel authentic, and nothing worked in my business. Now, I don't know if that's y'all, but you can hand raise, you can type a comment in the chat of you've tried to do some things. You've tried to hide or minimize your origin story. You've tried to pretend that these parts of you didn't exist when they really do. And what happened is, after I stopped being afraid of the vision, because God politely tapped me on my shoulder and was like, if you want your business to be profitable, you'll have to let this go. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. God, I already did the business cards, the website, the advertising, the speaking. I did all of those things under the Sage brand. And now you're telling me my business is not going to be profitable in the way that you have designed for it to be until I let this persona go. All right. So right there was my first rebrand, my first pivot into doing what I was called to do in the first place. And it was really scary because I was like, well, what's left? And what was left was Sybil. And I go back to Jesus's origin story again, right? Because they didn't just say, oh, let's call you Jesus. He was like, no, you need to call him Emmanuel. You need to call him Jesus. And I thought about what my parents named me. My parents named me Sybil. Y'all, if you've never Googled your name to figure out what your parents called you, that might even be blessing somebody today. So Sybil was actually a prophet. Sybil's are a Greek prophet. Y'all ever seen that movie 300 or similar? The Sybil's were the group of ladies who guarded the prophecy, and nobody was supposed to reveal her true identity. And she was the one who was getting the divine downloads. And then you get to my middle name, Samara, feminine for Samuel. Again, Samuel is who appointed David, called by God, led by God, heard from God. Again, another prophet. And then my last name, Stewart, which means to usher in. So, y'all, I don't know if there is a stronger name than prophet sent by God, who hears God, who's supposed to be stewarding people through something. That scared me. My origin story scared me. My name scared me because I felt the weight of all of those names kind of rushing at me. And I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, God, what you mean I'm supposed to be having a prophetic word? Prophets are in the Bible. Or having this really unhealthy relationship with what a modern day prophet is. And all I could think about was the person who was standing on the side of the street corner with the upside down sign and people saying that they need to be committed. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to, that's not what I feel like I'm called to do. So again, struggling with my own origin story, hoping that this helps somebody today to say, do not be afraid of your name. Do not be afraid of your origin story. Do not be afraid to share those things that could be a help to someone else, because they need to hear from that version of you. They need to see their likeness in you. You need to be the mirror to someone to help them heal their hurts, to help them do more of what they are called to do in life. So that is what I want to say about that. So the second thing is Jesus started to show his signs and his gifts early, right? So again, age 12, here he is, wise beyond his years. My gifts started to present early as well. Like I said, when I was growing up, I always had a little too much to say. Voted most likely to not be quiet in the class. That was me. I always wanted to speak. And so often people will minimize your gifts if you don't understand them. I spent the majority of my youth and my young adult life being silenced, when in fact this was the gift. This was the gift I was supposed to use. I remember the night when I had prayed about what I was supposed to do after leaving corporate, and God said, I want you to speak. And I was like, God, people have been telling me to shut up for 38 years. Now's the time I'm supposed to speak. And so I was afraid, but here's what happened. I fought through that thing. And within 6 months, I was getting my first paid keynote speech. Now, I don't say that to brag, but I say that to say if you are called to do something, your gifts will make room for you. God will make sure to push out the noise and get you positioned just so that you are using your gifts in a thoughtful way and in the way that glorifies and honors him, in a way that is kingdom building. And that gift was always there, but people were like, haha, Sybil, shut your mouth. And so I had to learn being quiet. And so now I have to unlearn the silence that was. And that's why, like I said, that silent season is so key, because even while I was being silent, my other gifts were taking shape. My other gifts were being formed. I became a school teacher. Now I get to teach other business owners how to teach. And then I look at Jesus's silent years, right? From 12 to almost 30. So that's 18 years that we have unaccounted time for Jesus. 18 years. And it feels like a lot because we have this human concept of time when really that wasn't a long time, especially for the, the lasting impact that he's had on all of our lives as faithful followers, as Christ followers. And so what I want to challenge each of you all to think today is, what did you want to be known for when you grew up? What were those gifts that were minimized while you were growing up that you now realize are the things that you're supposed to be serving in? And is that what you're reaching for? Is that why you've taken a long time to figure out what you want to do in your business, or what you should do next in your business? And then the third thing that I want to say today, and I'm so glad I am right on time, and y'all feel free to pop any of the comments in the chat or send me a DM. But number 3, it is so important to master your craft in silence. It is okay to be an expert and then develop transferable skills. So we know Jesus was a carpenter. That was his expertise. We know that Sybil was an HR expert for, like I said, about 12 years before she transitioned into this higher calling and into this purpose. Right. And so often we get excited when we see social media of these overnight successes or these people who seem to just have these, big brands that have popped out of nowhere. Well, I want to suggest to y'all today that Jesus would be the overnight 30-year success, right? It took 30 years for him to get into a place where he was prepared to share the gospel, to spread the word, and to step into a ministry that only was in existence for 3 years, which meant, right, that time had to be truncated. It wasn't like 3 years and then the things. It was like, no. Imagine what you could accomplish in the next 365 days if you allow God permission inside your business, if you fully submit your business and your vision and your plans to the Lord to say, you know what, God, I got this thing, but you are ordering my steps. Imagine if you function with that level of intention to make sure that everything you do is tied back to that greater purpose, to that greater known for. And so while you're mastering your craft in silence, right? Because again, we are creatures that evolve over time. I want you to think, how can you pivot from being just another expert into a thought leader in your industry? What would it look like for you to figure out how to merge those transferable skills into something marketable that still aligns with your truth? How can you prepare yourself to be noticed, to build your own stage? And y'all already know, I believe the Bold Women brand and Bold Women build their own stages. Jesus built his own stage. And he would not have been able to do that, I believe, without that period of honing his skills, building his craft, and building up that following of people who had to get to know him before he stepped into his higher power. And so I want to share with you all today that preparation season is just as important as the declaration season. So that last 12 years that I talk about a lot was not for naught. I was learning how to be a better educator. I was learning how to be a better leader. I was learning business savvy that I now get to use to help the women that I am here and called to serve. I had to hone my communication skills because as much as people told me to shut up, I kept talking, but I needed to learn what it meant to be an effective communicator, a more dynamic speaker. None of that would have happened without that 12-year journey through the wilderness, through corporate, so that I could come out on the other side and have conversations like this without fear and with intention. Okay. And while he was mastering his craft, right? Because again, we don't know exactly what happened. We know that it was behind closed doors. And so often we want to put everything out in the open and here's all the things I did. It is okay to hone those skills behind closed doors and come with them ready to give the world. So again, I say, like I said, those are the three things that I wanted to share this morning. Number one, what you were ordained and designed to do, it started at or before your birth. Number two, look to the gifts that were already showing within you. I tell people around age 7 or 8 is when we start to lose ourselves to the world. So if you think about that 7 or 8-year-old you, what did they want to be? I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I wanted to be a mannequin. And people were like, Sybil, what you mean? And I said, well, now, follow me here. Right? I was like, I wanted to be a mannequin. I wanted to get all dressed up and show people the pretty clothes so that they could see their likeness in me. And then I also wanted to be an advocate. And when I think about it, the Sybil that I am today, I still like getting dressed up. I still like pretty clothes. I still want to be the mirror to somebody who needs to see their likeness in me. And I definitely feel very led to be an advocate for people who are trying to figure out or find their voice. And so as I close today, because again, I believe in starting and ending on time, all great speakers do. I want for you to lean in and trust the process and trust yourself and trust the vision that you've been given for you and your business, whatever that looks like. And then next week, I'm going to talk about niche sound like Jesus. So I was running a search, and again, y'all hold me accountable. Not a biblical scholar, study the Bible, read the Bible, try to take the things in. But in my research, they said that there were almost or over about 200 names that Jesus was called throughout the Bible, right? Now, we, of course, all know the top 5 or 10, but if we think about that, over 200 descriptors. And so next week is for my multi-passionate creatives who said they can't make a decision, they don't know how to niche down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. With all of the names that we have used to describe Jesus, because those are descriptors, he still only had one job. He had one assignment, right? And so I don't want you to get stuck in leaning too deeply in what the world says they're supposed to call you, or leaning too deeply into those titles that you think you're supposed to have, and start positioning yourself as that person who has a divine purpose. You will figure out what that known for is supposed to be, and all of those titles will follow you and become a part of you because you are stepping in truth. So if you are like me, a multi-passionate creative who is on fire for serving in your biggest, strongest, meaningful gifts to leave the world a little bit better than you found it, then you definitely do not want to miss next week. I am so excited to have been able to share this with you all today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.